This morning, the topic of the talk is suggested by uh, Jay Loshar, who lives with his husband in Saginaw. People are going to have to stop shifting around, keep track of them. And that title topic is self-confidence. So that's a good one. I don't know if I've talked about that before. As an actual topic, I mention it sometimes. So there's a lot to be said about that, and a lot not to say. I will do both. So it's an interesting concept. I didn't even look it up, so I don't know what it means in the dictionary. But we all have an idea. We use it quite often. I don't have any self-confidence, or I'm losing my self-confidence, or I don't feel confident. On and on. There's all kinds of commentary on this, and the meaning of the term is generally accepted as thinking that you're okay with what you're doing. You're pretty good at it. Some kind of an evaluation going on. And that's exactly what it is. It's an evaluation with what? Partial evidence. Not a particularly good evaluation. If you wanted to evaluate something, you'd want to have all the information about that. But we tend to settle for half of the story. And Jay has sent some questions in here, so and I'll address those in a few moments. And I'm very happy to welcome Sokuzan. Long 3.5-hour drive. So it's there's so many different directions for me. All kinds of things are arising. But one of the things that comes up is I notice that with myself, I really someone might look at me and think that I'm confident, and I am not particularly confident at all. And I'm not exactly frightened to death either. And quite often our experience of that is we start to head into any situation, whether it's just an alarm going off at 6:30 in the morning. That's a situation. We're going into work. We're facing our relationship situation. We're facing our jobs, our coworkers, our boss, our sangha, our teacher, our students. We're facing that, our job, how we look, what our reputation. Quite a bit of that comes down to pride. Being proud of something that actually can change at any minute. If you're proud of this or proud of that, or you have pride, or your pride is being attacked, or whatever, it's a very changeable. It's basically impermanent all the time. Whatever you think, whatever you believe, anything that comes up is a lie from the point of view of these teachings of relative truth. That's the very thing about relative truth. It is not true. It's neither true nor untrue. You take any position, you can always find something else that works better or seems better or fits in given situations. So I would say the best kind of self-confidence, no confidence at all. If there's no confidence at all, that you'll know right away how much strength your particular ego has, your particular grasping at a self. If no confidence, then you'll discover that how much you actually believe that you are a solid being who can win or lose. You're not a solid being. It's heartbreaking to look around and see people grasping at some kind of a person that they are that's going down, or a person that they are that's getting better and better and better, really improving. I sometimes say, in different ways, and the way I'm saying it now, I probably have never said before, but it doesn't matter. If you want me to show you the strength of your ego, all I have to do is insult you. And if you're not insulted, then there's probably not much stuff in there to catch the accusation that's coming towards you. The same as if I compliment you, the degree to which you puff up, even if I'm making it up. The degree to which you puff up is the degree to which you're sensitive as an apparent self to the causes and conditions that arise in your environment, including the things that arise in your own karma in your mind. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about this lifetime. And am I talking about other lifetimes? Not necessarily. I'm just saying that there is so much we don't see. There's so much. And you know, if you are a person who begins to see what is happening, it's just about, I won't even say just about, it is impossible to tell anyone what that is, because the consciousness, the awareness is so sovereign. This is not an ego. Your insight, you are not separate from the Buddha. You're not separate from the very teaching which we are studying day after day that occurred 2,500 years ago. This seems to be why it is so important to sit down, as we did earlier today, do the forms, do some kind of a form, sit down and set aside a time to actually examine, actually look and see what is arising, what is falling away, what it actually is, what it is in itself, and how that actually works, how much credibility, how much credit you can give to anything. And you know, quite often, if someone compliments you, it's more about the one who's giving the compliment than what they're saying to you. If you actually are receiving a compliment, that's about anything. A person is actually revealing the shape of their mind when they do that in relationship to who they think you are. There's no way they can see you. There's no way they can see you as a separate being. There's only one way they can see you, and it's not separate. If they see you as not separate, what's to evaluate? Everybody's at a different point on the Ferris wheel. Oh, you're way down there. Well, I'm way up here. Well, just wait. This is called samsara. As long as you're a living being, you're coming up and you're going down. The meditation cushion in the Tibetan tradition is called a Gamden meditation seat, square cushion. The word Gam, and someone who is a translator might correct me, but as I recall, the word Gam means get used to it. In other words, watch what's coming and going, watch what's coming and going. And slowly over time or instantly, see who it is that's actually seeing it, what it is that is actually seeing something else. So talking about self-confidence on a more mundane level, I would say if you're, when you're going in, let's say as an example, you're getting ready to apply for a job, you're going in, it's an interview. This would be a typical thing that probably everybody has faced. And when you're going in, as a meditator, how you work with that, how you handle that is you stay in the feelings that you're having. Don't try to cover that up with compliments to yourself. Well, I'm pretty good. I'm doing pretty well. I'm not doing too bad. I got this. I have my notes. I have my credential. You would be better to go into that interview fundamentally, not literally, but fundamentally naked. In other words, go in there and take what life is presenting you. Receive whatever is coming up. You have an interview coming up. Go in there. I'm not saying you shouldn't prepare or take in your resume, or maybe even rewrite your resume. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying go in and see what that situation is. If you're having a meeting with someone who is, you're going to sit down and talk with someone, maybe it's your mate, maybe it's your business partner, maybe it's your boss, maybe your friend, maybe a Sangha member, maybe your meditation teacher. I'm not saying you shouldn't prepare, but don't prepare as a presentation. Prepare as, be open to what's happening, because if you prepared as a presentation, this is what you're doing to yourself. I have no confidence to just be in this situation and allow my life to wash over me, which it's going to do anyway. Does it sound like I'm scolding you? Trying really hard. But to actually have a willingness on some level to go in and present yourself in front of that person or that situation in such a way that you benefit, to use that relative word, the most from that. You actually use the situation to understand yourself more deeply, rather than you've pulled the wool over their eyes again. So it doesn't mean don't prepare. It just means go in with the idea that there's something going to occur there. They have no idea what it is. And that you don't need to have some kind of an artificial self-confident idea built up to protect you from any particular thing that you might call consequences. So Jay had some questions, specific questions. We can look at his first.
He asks, is perceived confidence or the lack of confidence ego? And
yes.
And then his next question, is there anything about which to be confident / non-confident in the first place?
That's a good question. And basically I would say, since everything is fluctuating all the time, you might be at the top of the heap, or you might be at the bottom. That's always fluctuating and changing. So it's always a relative situation, as long as you are aware that it's very relative and then it can be changing. It could change at any time. Then you're more tuned into the actual vibration of whatever particular situation is happening. And there's an understanding that things are constantly changing and fluctuating. But the best kind of confidence is no confidence. No confidence, no lack of confidence, no accumulation of confidence. When I come into this room to talk about self-confidence, I don't have any idea what I'm going to do. I mean, I brought in a note, and here's what the note says. Self-confidence, conditional, pride, complimenter. In other words, the person who compliments you. And no belief, no disbelief. Did I cover all those? I don't believe that. What do I mean by no belief, no disbelief? I'm going to say, insofar as you can in your life, check that out. Sitting on the cushion, paying for gas at the gas station, going into the bank, talking to your friends, your enemies for that matter. Whatever, notice the belief, disbelief that runs your life. I believe that I'm really doing well. I believe that I'm really doing terrible. I'm not saying to stop that. That's a misunderstanding. But to actually look at it, you have to get as big, as wide, as spread out a perspective as you can. Try to look at the entire, as they say, big picture. Of course, as soon as you say big picture, you immediately, at least I do, I see the frame. And anytime you see a frame, you see limitation. So even big picture doesn't work. perhaps no picture. But just to use myself as an example, if I needed confidence to do this, I would not be here because I don't really have any confidence. This doesn't mean that if someone doesn't like me or thinks I'm a horrible Dharma teacher, that I don't feel that. Of course I do. I feel that. But the other thing I also feel is I feel that person's situation. I understand that person's situation. They may be, from their point of view, they may be fundamentally correct. And it might show up in the form that they don't want this kind of a teaching. They're not ready for it. This is not for everyone to do. Yeah. When you and I just went to a concert last night where there were hundreds and hundreds of people. I don't know how many, 500, 600 maybe. You know, playing Tchaikovsky and what was the other guy's name? Saint-Saëns. It was wonderful. And there's all these people there, all totally magnetized by this. And look how many people are sitting here listening to the Dharma, something that's been around for 2,500 years. So that really hurts my confidence. I mean, I think I should have been up there talking to those guys. I'm sitting there thinking, don't they know who I am? Those kind of things arise, and you need to be really, really aware of that. It will run your life. It will run your life up in the air where you could fall, or will run your life right down to the ground where you can suffocate. You don't have to do any of that. There isn't anyone. There is no solid being. So therefore, all the confidence, great, go ahead or all the compliments, go ahead and compliment. All the criticism, go ahead and criticize. I'm not saying that you don't hear it or are affected or maybe even feel that. It's just that it doesn't run you. It doesn't, it's there, and it maybe might not feel so good. Let's say if everyone in this room got up and left. And I'll say, I've really got something else to do. Or else people started, instead of a few more people each every couple months, started dwindling down to maybe one person. I was just imagining what I would do. I would move to Florida. I'd take you to. Go ahead.
Is
this Jay?
No, this is my question.
Your question, okay.
Is seeing no solid self a realization?
That's the first part of it. Because then there's a person who sees the no solid self, and then that has to be dealt with. Becomes a credential. There's a seeing and there's a no seeing. It's actually not two. You can't name a single thing. You can't name a single thing that doesn't have an opposite to it. It's called duality, and we're hooked on it. We love it. We hate it, but we love it. That's not two. But
so while we're waiting for that realization to arise, how do we deal with self-confidence?
Use the forms that are available. That could be for you personally. That could be, you're a monk, so it's a little bit different for you. You're already received and are observing a vow to put others before yourself. And the most powerful part of that vow is to see the way you can't do that. You can't do that because there's still a self. There's still a self. When there's no self, then you both see that you're both doing it and not doing it. You're no longer picking and choosing, because whatever occurs, whether it's in your mind or in somebody else's apparent mind or any situation, is exactly what needs to happen. This does not mean that a Republican should be in office. So I'm taking it'd be a silly comment based on what's going on in politics, but it is like that. It doesn't mean there's a truth or an untruth, because anytime you say this should happen or that shouldn't happen, you're missing zillions and uncountable number of causes and conditions that are completely unidentified, unnoticed, that are completely perfect. Nothing is out of balance, unless it is. And if it is, then you should balance it, like your checkbook. Shoka.
How does someone's suffering become friend or enemy?
Like, you mean as a practitioner, how does your suffering become your friend or your enemy?
I guess coming up against someone else's suffering, how it can become they're the enemy.
Okay. It becomes that because you're not really seeing their suffering. You're projecting onto their suffering. You don't really see. If you saw their suffering, then there wouldn't be any position on it other than your vow.
What's being projected?
That they're to blame for something. That there is some kind of polarity that something needs to be done about it. More? That's a good question.
How do you relate to that?
Through awareness. Bring your awareness to it. Strengthen your awareness so you can see. You have to see what's happening in your own mind so that you can see what's happening in other apparent minds and activities. Until we really see it, we're always projecting onto others what we think we think they are and what they're doing, and which we live in this extremely divided world. And the example is just watch the news. It's so extreme that, and here we are working on an individual basis. If you're in this room, then you're probably pretty interested in being sane and not necessarily blaming anybody. So there's already that. You got that going for you. You're here and you're working on your mind, but it takes a while because things are so very, very complicated. You can't just, if something is all wrinkled, you can't just run an iron over it once and that's the end of that. Probably shouldn't iron it at all. Should really look at it and see what it is. So more about that.
How do you work with the really intense desire to want to iron?
Yeah, just you're probably already doing it. The issue seems to come up is when we try to look for results. We actually leave the awareness practice to look for, is it paying off? Am I succeeding? More? Can you relate that to confidence, self-confidence, no confidence? Can you relate that, your question to that? Can you phrase your question in such a way that it addresses Jay's original question?
Well, there seems to be a very strong evaluation going on of
Yes,
my practice.
that's awareness. You see the evaluation. What do you do with the evaluation? Justify it or try to stop it?
Both.
Okay. So that's what we're doing. So then you have to see that you're trying to get something to happen other than what is happening. And by doing that, that's more projection. There's more blinders are put on because we're fighting with it. And the way you can tell, if you need an indicator, the way you can tell that you're not fighting or that you're at least making some progress, if you want to use that kind of a relative word, is that it hurts. And you begin to actually take on the other person's suffering, the other person's difficulty. Through your own feelings, of course. It isn't like their feelings move over into you, but you feel that more.
What's the contrast between that and projecting what another person's suffering is?
What?
Beginning to feel
Okay.
with.
Yes.
And projecting onto somebody what that suffering is.
I'm still not following you. What's the question there?
I don't know.
Do you know what he's saying? You're his fiance.
Looking at your purple roll.
Oh, that's good. Michael.
What if there's so much negativity there
Yes.
and being being in the past
For you or the
for
negative?
this
Yes.
other.
Yeah, go to the question as quick as you can.
What do you do about all that negativity?
Hold your seat. Hold your seat. When you're a practitioner, and I'm kind of jumping ahead into what probably you're talking about, and the other person is not a practitioner, the only thing you can do is practice. Don't meddle with them. They have their own karma. A person's individuality is very important to be respected, and at the same time, not indulge, but also not go out the other way and totally abandon them. So don't do anything about it, but watch them very closely. Watch their purple robe. Watch the color of their clothes. Watch their body language when they move, how they move. There's so much information in just not something you can translate into concepts and statements necessarily. I would even recommend against doing that. I would say just stay with the texture. We're always in our thinking process, the sixth, seventh, and eighth consciousness, as is described in the Yogacara tradition. But the first five, the sense consciousnesses, are basically ignored. We ignore gravity. We ignore how things smell, unless something comes and hits us. Stay in that. Just pick two senses, and as you're relating to your situation, the person you're relating to, pick two senses, and stay in those. Sense of seeing, sense of touch. Go to gravity. Go to the sense of just be in the room. Yes, go ahead.
But what do you do when it's so overwhelming?
For you or for them?
Both. I mean, what's flowing out is so overwhelming.
You're here. You survived it. You made it to the Zendo. I don't mean to mock what is happening, but I'm saying that give me a little bit more.
Just being with them at times.
Yeah.
And not trying to iron it out.
Okay, good. That sounds good. Don't fix them.
Don't fix them, but it's just.
But a kitchen counter, kitchen table, walking around, sitting in the living room, in those kind of situations, don't forget the furniture in the room. Don't forget the color and textures of things. Don't necessarily draw up into your thinking process and begin to torture yourself because you can't seem to fix them, or you can't seem to communicate, or they seem so unresponsive. Or some people are so determined, and I don't mean this as an accusation, it's more of it's a description. They're so determined to be a victim that you pretty much have to wait them out. And one of the ways you can do that is don't support that. You support that if you try to fix them. You try to go in and say, well, maybe you should do this. Or how about this? Well, how about that? Well, maybe this will help. And they just want to curl up into that negativity. So go ahead.
I guess it's really not about them as how I'm feeling in that situation.
Then what's the question?
What do I do with all of that negativity that's coming at me?
I'm not much into the suggestion businesses here, but other than awareness, it's your karma. It's the cause and effects that are happening with you personally, or it's your karma ripening in relationship to a particular person, particular situation. And insofar as you can, be as much of an observer as you can. And if you're just completely present, then what needs to be done about that, if anything, will start to arise. So my recommendation as a Dharma teacher would be sit a lot. You already know that. Sit, hold still, and train the mind, the sixth sense fields that are actually they're receiving all of this negativity from someone else. Quite often, people just want to dump. They don't know what to do, and they want to feel better. So if they've got somebody in their room, they're going to blame them. I see it all the time. It's not often that I get blamed, but I get blamed sometimes, pretty intensely. Yes.
Questions from Sandru out in New York and then
Yes, Sandru.
Shane in California.
Got both coasts covered.
Yes. So Sandru asks,
Yes.
he has a question, then a statement, and then another question. Are there two kinds of self-confidence? I'm confident I can cut a 2x4 to a certain length. And then there's a self-confidence that draws a meaning from that about how really wonderful I am because I can use a power tool. There's not really anyone to put first, is there? If I'm thinking about putting you first, am I reinforcing that sense of me who's here to you first? So the first one, are there two kinds of self-confidence? And then there's not really anyone to put first, is there?
So Sandra, I'd probably have to have a discussion with you about that to get to talk about that. But I would say yes, you could probably divide that up into several different ways. Confidence about this, you're confident about that. It's a relative. Confidence is relative. Cutting into, I'm confident I can do that. It feels good to have learned something and be able to apply it and see, I got that. I can do that. So, if there's another question, we have time.
And, okay, he did clarify. Hold
Okay.
on, let's see. Wonderful autocorrect, right? Okay, so the question is, there's not really anyone to put first. Is there, if I'm thinking about putting you first, am I reinforcing that sense of me who's here to put you first?
Yeah, it's always doubling back on itself. So if you feel like you're no longer have an ego, then that's still a problem from the point of view of awareness practice. It's actually not two. You neither have one or you not have one. So, but first we have to go to the self-centeredness, seeing that it's unreal based on what we think we are, who we think we are. It's an astonishing, very personal, very powerful, overwhelming understanding, feeling, insight, whatever word you want to give, to realize that you can actually talk and say things and not have a talker.
Not have a talker? What do you mean?
Nobody behind the talking. There's just the talking. No one here. If there was anyone here, then I'd be concerned about what you thought. And I'm neither concerned about what you thought, what you're thinking, nor am I unconcerned. So therefore, I'm very curious. Go ahead.
Shane's question, and then we'll have to
Wrap it up.
His question is, how can overconfidence or underconfidence be a dharma gate to look at?
Exactly. I mean, you've said it already, Shane. It's just look at it. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to go in with any kind of, fluffing things up because, you have to be more confident, or tamping things down because you have too much self-centeredness, too much narcissism. It's only about seeing it, and then it will begin to work itself out based on your karma, based on your life, based on, in our situation, that's why we have the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, so that some aspect of the Buddha's teachings will catch you coming and going. You have the Buddha, you have the example of someone who was awake, you have the truth that he taught in terms of the concepts, and sometimes being able to point beyond that. Then you have a community of people that get together, as we're doing here, and try to understand this. So we need to move because we need to start daily Dharma gathering in 15 minutes. Okay. Was there any other questions from Jay? Okay. Well, now what?
Dedicate the merit.
Okay.
In the back of your yellow morning service books is the dedication merit. Also reminding everybody we do have a donation box out in the hallway, as well as the ability to donate online.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiro San Shi Shifu Shizon Mu Sa Moko Sa Moko Jaoromi. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna or Paramita,